Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday. On behalf of the Fort Worth Community Arts Center, we'd like to welcome you folks to another edition of our Boxed Lunch episodes. I have one of my dear friends, cohorts, and colleagues joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us in welcoming the one and only Shawn Gann. How you doing today, Shawn?
Hey, how's everybody doing? I'm doing great. Just taking a little time out of my day to hang out with my bud.
Well, we are so very grateful to you for taking the time to join us. It's nice to have a partner in crime these days, having lunch with me today. And we've had the luxury and privilege of sharing a little bit of time over the last couple of weeks. And I'm just very grateful for you to come aboard and visit with us today and tell us how you're doing and what's going on in your life. So
Thanks.
before we move forward, I was wondering if you would be kind enough to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do, Shawn.
Well, hello, Facebook land. This is Shawn Gann. I am a theater maker, actor, director, producer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've been doing it for 20 plus years now in the area. I am a founding board member to Altered Shakespeare. I'm a company member with Lip Service and with Shakespeare Everywhere Dallas. Performed throughout the Metroplex with many different theaters, Water Tower, Theater 3, Shakespeare Dallas. I've been on the Bass Hall stage. I've toured nationally and internationally, and it's all led me to a collision course with Mr. Jason Leva, and we're now doing the Zeus story over at Fort Worth Arts under the veranda, and it's been a blast.
Absolutely. I think you're selling yourself a little short also. Not only do you act on stage, you're also got a few characters that are in the anime world. Am I right about that as well?
Yes, I also do some voice acting for Funimation for the most part. I'm in an ongoing anime called Radiant, the French adaptation into Japan. It's really beautiful. It actually covers a lot of what's going on and mirrors a lot of what's going on in our world, politics and people-wise, and kind of a lot of the trials and tribulations we're going through right now as far as immigration and isolation and communication. A lot of those themes that are kind of universal when you're talking about groups having issues. I've also done voice work for Dragon Ball Super and One Piece and Attack on Titan, and I can thank Funimation and Caitlin Glass and a lot of the directors out there for having me over again and again and again, having me goof off with them. I really appreciate it. And I've also done a little commercial and film work through my agency and through my different connections. And in fact, I have right now 2 productions going on. One is The Dark Places on Vimeo and Amazon that I did with Hollywood Shakespeare, an entire film production that was done quarantine style, meaning that nobody was in the same room. We managed all the sound, music, and acting all separate. We had people from 3 different countries working on it, including across the pond in the UK. And I also worked with Firelight Entertainment on a synchronized Midsummer Night's Dream that has been getting a lot of coverage in Santa Barbara right at the moment. And yeah, man, so I try to stay busy.
Well, you certainly do that. I can attest to that. I've seen it firsthand. So, all right, talking about more of our personal lives here. What is on your lunch menu today? And can you tell me a little bit about the ingredients that go into it?
With pleasure. All right, everybody, we got ourselves some down-home cooking. We have a curry lime zest chicken salad that I'm going to make for you today. What's beautiful about it is, other than the chicken, there's no cooking. And in fact, if you're smart and want to be a little cheeky, you can stop by the store and get yourself a rotisserie and debone it, or get a chicken breast that's already cooked as well. A lot of fresh ingredients. We've got cilantro, curry powder, lime juice, shallots, little kosher salt, celery, little apple, and we actually zest it a little bit with some lime here, and use the plain Greek yogurt for the creaminess. And right here I have my chicken breasts, which I will be shredding here in a little bit as well. Mix it all in a bowl, toss it up, and serve it with, however you want to do your chicken salad. But what I use is romaine lettuce hearts, and serve it like, chicken lettuce wrap style. And it's beautiful. My wife loves it. It's super low calorie. She can eat a ton of it and not have to worry about anything. So, it goes well in the Gann household.
Nice. It sounds absolutely delicious. I'm going to balance that out today with some protein power. So I'm going, I'm going back to my college lunch days today. And I'm making the good old fashioned pork and beans. You just can't go wrong with a good mix of protein. So back in the old days, I just used hot dogs, Oscar Mayer wieners or whatever. And I know a lot of people are familiar with the beanie weenies in a can. So this is basically just a homemade version of that. But I'm stepping it up a little bit with some little smokies today. And also Kingsford baked beans with a bacon. So
oh man, that brand name
today. I've also got some homemade beer bread, which was actually sent to me. So I've got some butter on that. I'll toast that up with a little bit of cheese, and then I'll throw that forward as well. Mine also requires very little cooking. Just open the can in the package, throw it in a pan, and let it heat up. So, all right, my friend, I'm going to heat up my skillet and pot, and we'll get started. While we're doing that, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the first steps that you do to prep your lunch?
Oh, certainly. I've done some pre-work here, but obviously the biggest one, if you're going to do it fresh, is baking your chicken. 400 degrees, get your chicken to 165 in the center, pull it out, let it cool down a bit, but you want it warm for the shredding. I'm going to use a KitchenAid mixer with a little attachment on there. That'll help a lot. But if you don't have that, what I normally do is I use 2 forks and just shred it myself. I used a lot of celery, just chopped it up a little bit here. As you can see, I've got a nice big Honeycrisp apple here that I'm going to, and this is the part I wanted to do for you guys because you have to see me do some work. I'm going to go ahead and break it apart here with this device. Boom. Got myself all my slices here. Get rid of the core, not worry about that. Boom. Pull my apples out. And all I do is just chop these up as well. It's pretty simple.
Looks like a pretty handy dandy device. What do you call that thing?
It is it's the Pillsbury corer, apple corer, slice and corer. It just slices the apple with a little force, and you get the core out there and just toss that away. You don't have to worry about it. Stems and everything are all gone. Keep the skin on. Do a little apple chopping. Doesn't have to be too small or anything like that. Just enough that it's not something that you're chewing on for a minute when you're in the salad.
Nice. Well, while you're coring that up and getting your prep ready, I was wondering if you'd talk a little bit about how you're dealing with all of this COVID-19. I know that you are involved in several theatrical entities and organizations. How are they dealing with all of this, and you yourself dealing with the COVID-19 these days?
Well, when everything first started, I'd say that most of the theaters I was involved with just went on hiatus. They all were watching and waiting, seeing how things would turn out, seeing what steps they'd have to take. A lot of the theater I'm involved with, mainly, especially with Altered Shakespeare and Shakespeare Everywhere Dallas, is event type theater, one-off type theater, where we like to go to pop-up locations like bars or libraries or institutes that want to host us. So requires a gathering of people, requires a lot of people in a tight space, and there's a lot of audience interaction. We like to take the groundling approach to Shakespeare, meaning that everyone kind of is part of the action. So obviously, as the pandemic broke out, that became something that was really hard to do. So for the most part, people started either sitting and waiting or going into virtual productions. And we did a couple of readings. I think most our groups want to get back on stage or want to do something beyond just a Zoom presentation of what we had in store, because ours is a lot of live music and a lot of audience interaction. So we want to have that feel. So we're kind of holding off on that at the moment. We have a tentative production with Shakespeare Everywhere Dallas to perform in collaboration with Shakespeare Dallas on their pavilion, September 28th at the moment, with a lot of social distancing and kind of being at Sam Grand Park gives you that great deal of space to be kind of run around and not really bump into anybody, and make sure your masks are still on and stuff like that. Some of the companies that have kind of cropped out of this mess, Plague Mask Players is a new company. There was another group that did a quarantine project called the Quarantine Theater Company that did a King Lear that we synchronized and showed really early on. Plague Mask Players is an ongoing one. They do weekly performances and readings. I've done poetry readings with Cry Havoc Theater for their Ghostlight project, which, by the way, is great. If you can manage to get an invite or be a part of it, the poet, it's interesting to hear, theatrical pieces, but also music and different poetry. So you get a lot of stuff that you normally wouldn't get in our field. You get to hear Maya Angelou, you get to hear some soliloquies and one-offs by Tennessee Williams. So it's a really kind of beautiful event, and a lot of original pieces. A lot of their Cry Havoc's obviously known for their young people, so a lot of their performers write their own poetry, and it's all pretty stunning stuff. I really enjoy it. Hollywood Shakespeare, they jumped out and decided to do a full film production, and currently Altered Shakespeare Prison Movement Company and Shakespeare Everywhere Dallas are collaborating to put on their own film production. We're storyboarding at the moment and putting things in the works and reaching out to different performers and different technicians to help us with the process. And it's I guess the thing to say in general is everyone's doing what they can. They're lying in wait, they're watching, but they're also doing anything and everything to stay active and to stay artistically motivated, and plan for the eventuality of being able to be in front of people again or present in the new normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've seen some of the teasers for some of the readings, and it really looks like people are stepping up the game with some of these virtual presentations. And I've noticed that a lot of these companies are really starting to move into more costume props, and more importantly, it's been really exciting to see how they have embraced a lot of these virtual platforms with Zoom, and have really started to be able to cohesively engage in a virtual setting with box interaction, and really taking the time to craft these performances to where they really are becoming quite visually engaging. It's not just people sitting in front of a box anymore. And that was one of the things that really struck me with some of the pieces that you've been working on, was how they've really, really amplified and put a lot of time and thought into the visual imagery of this. And it's really exciting to see how that is elevating and bringing a new aspect to virtual theater, if you'll call that. So can you talk a little bit about how some of that went about? And I know that you've got some experience in film production as well. Are the two really starting to kind of meld together? Are you seeing some of the traits from film production crossing over into the virtual theater?
Certainly. And certainly a lot of theater people have experience on the film side too, yourself. I like to use Theater 3 as an example because they just put on a production of The Immigrant, and they had great luck with the publishers and the rights, using a green screen, never having anybody in the same room, kind of just doing that seamless acting within a segment. But you're not there sharing in the moment, but you get to witness it and kind of craft it and piece it together like you would a film, which is great. And it helps to put out like a very interesting performance. And with a green screen, obviously you're able to layer these different backgrounds and settings that you might not have been able to do on a live stage, and you change locales a little quicker and have certain effects. Like with the Midsummer we did with Firelight, Gabrielle Corte, she is the one that's one of the founders along with CN. She's an amazing editor, right? I know you've seen the trailer for this, and I know you maybe even seen the production, but the way she's able to manipulate the boxes and have things kind of connect, like it makes it look like we're in the same space, how she has effects kind of driving through the scene, and certain scenery and changes and venues kind of like encroaching in on the action. Bringing in together the amount of talent she did as well from so many different states was insane. I mean, we had people out of all over California, Colorado, New York, Texas, all virtually doing this and self-taping and piecing together, their performances while being directed on Zoom with their scene partners and with the director, and also using a camera setting to kind of like synchronize their performances and make sure that there's no gaps in the transition of dialogue, rather than playing with the editing to make it happen so perfectly. We collaborate all over DFW, and Jeff Colangelo, who's the founder and artistic director of Prism Movement Company, he was also in that production with me. And if anybody's familiar with what they're doing right now, they're doing Everything Will Be Fine, and that's been a great success for them, where they have cars drive up into an area and tune into a radio station and watch a performance out there that they can hear through their car. Right. I hope to be able to get out to that as well, but of course you and I are in a production that kind of has been overlapping with that. But he is an innovator. Gabrielle's an innovator. I think artistic innovators will find ways to make art happen, to make it beautiful, to make it accessible. And I think some of them just look at it as a great challenge, and it energizes them to do something new. And I think part of that collaboration on the project that Altered Shakes and Prism and Shakespeare Everywhere, I think half of that is driven solely by the idea of pushing the boundaries of what's the current normal. So I'm very happy for that. I'm very happy for the things that are coming out of this, and I'm also happy for the new kind of doors that have opened for it as well. Especially like in the VO world. I mean, most of us are used to going into a studio, sitting in a box, being around people, getting direction. Now you can do, they've set kits out home. You have your own home set up, and they're more flexible, because obviously they want to get the product out. They want to get the shows on TV. They want to get their DVDs out, and it's establishing the possibility of a more remote, ongoing future for those industries, which saves on driving, saves poor actors commute cash, and gets to utilize them to their full potential, and gives them a comfortable environment with which to work from, which is I also kind of the virtual stuff does too. I like being opposite somebody and being in a setting and having that pressure, but also being at home and this air conditioning and reading off a screen is pretty wonderful too. So
absolutely.
It's a crazy time, and I think everyone's doing everything that's necessary to put themselves out there, and I think they're trying to be smart about it, so, and I think that's the key thing, is to work within the confines of what's been given to us at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff out there, and I know that people are curious about how we're going to get back to normalcy here, and it's quite interesting to see how people are creating some new normals and allowing us to move forward with the safety and features that we currently have in front of us. So, all right, how's your lunch coming there? I see you dropping some new stuff in there. Take me through it.
Yep.
Let me know how it's going.
So what you have going on here right now is I put everything in the same bowl, right? Because it's where it's all going to go. We're going to mix it together. We got our celery, got apples, which I had talked about earlier. I cut up a medium-sized shallot and diced it up. Got that in there. cilantro, a good deal of cilantro. If you're one of those people that cilantro tastes like toothpaste too, one, I feel sorry for you. But two, you can just not have it in there. I mean, it is just a little texture and a highlight. And what I'm doing is zesting a little lime into there at the moment, and put some lime juice already also to mix in there, help with the kind of consistency of that flavor zesting through. I also have the curry powder. I use just a regular tandoori, and we have the Greek yogurt, which I like the chicken salad to be creamy, to spread really well on the lettuce and stuff. So I put probably twice what the recipe calls for, which is usually like half a cup. So I'm putting in a whole cup. Once that's all in place, I'll go ahead and switch over and shred all this chicken. And once that's shred, we just toss it in the bowl and use our little whisker and spoon over here and just get it all mixed up, and then we'll be ready to go.
Nice. Well, it looks absolutely delicious. Mine isn't near as pretty. I just put that butter on my bread. I've got the cheese going there, and I'll melt that up and toast it. And then, of course, my pork and beans are just warming up and all right there in the bowl. Open can, add heat. So mine's moving forward there as well. So while we're moving on here, Shawn, tell me a little bit about what you've learned about yourself and also possibly the organizations that you've been working with during this trying time.
Well, I've learned that given any time alone and with my own thoughts, I get antsy. And so I go and do self-taping and research all the different virtual performances. And I watch a lot more movies. I'm reading a lot more in the world of plays. I get the occasional kind of nonfiction also, but I just kind of keep moving, right? But I've also discovered that's only on the artistic side. I'll take a walk occasionally or stretch occasionally. I find myself just, cooking and eating more too. So right there. So that whole, if only I had time at home to really focus on working out and do this stuff. I would not do that. I should, but I'm not. I like spending a lot more time with my dog. So, and I've discovered that there isn't any amount of time that I can spend with my wife that I find, trying. She's a lot of fun. And she's a great balance to me. So it helps having her around. In fact, she keeps me sane even when I'm just kind of like fidgeting around all the time. As far as the organizations I work with, it's very different across the board and all mainly positive. For instance, Altered Shakespeare, I'm super proud. It's a very young organization. We are a BIPOC. We reach out to the LGBTQA plus community, special needs. We want to provide Shakespeare to people who normally wouldn't feel up for the task because maybe they didn't grow up on it, or maybe they feel the field is too competitive with the standard that's already in place. And within that organization, we have young people on the board like Christopher Liu and Allie Mims and Chris Sanders, and they're out there being a part of the Black Lives Matter movement and protesting and putting out information, kind of adhering to the mission of Altered Shakespeare and making themselves part of the change in the community and the action that's happening. And I'm very proud of them for that. And they're very smart individuals, very forward-thinking individuals. Chris was a graduate of the SMU's graduate program, and they're teaching and making themselves available virtually as much as possible for the services they offer. Christopher Luke Clue is off to Brown University for graduate school. I mean, Ivy Leaguer, and he's heading to a nice, safe area in Rhode Island, which I'm jealous about. And Allie Mims for playwriting, running off to Columbia in New York. I'm just stunned. They're just brilliant people, and they're all innovators. They're all hungry, and I just like being around them. I like the work that they do. And on the Shakespeare Everywhere side that I'm a company member with. Marcus Stimick runs that, and he's very cognizant and recognizes the issues around him. He recognizes that our outreach needs to be better, and also we need to take care of those that are with us. So a lot of our rehearsals have been virtual. He's canceled a production of Othello that a lot of work went into and a lot of reservations went into, and we're pushing to find the different areas where we can be productive and still provide the kind of art that we want to provide. And as far as you and I are concerned, Lip Service and Fort Worth Arts Center, I mean, we get together, you, me, and Bert Pig and Branson White, and we kind of just said, let's do it, figure it out. And here we are making art, putting up a classic with Edward Albee. And I think the Zoo Story, as far as a traditional theatrical show, that was probably, outside of a one-man show, probably the best way we could, put a piece of art up and still have that live aspect to it, and I'm very proud of us for that as well. I liked that I've been able to get out of the home to do it. I love performing in front of people. It's amazing how this pandemic and, staying at home has taken away my endurance. I was wiped after this weekend, after our opening, which, by the way, was a great success. Very proud, very happy about that. But after I got home Saturday, I kind of laid out all of Sunday and was just like, I can't believe like the energy that I was able to expend and let go, and how much was taken out of me just to do that bit. And not that I'm concerned with, but I'm excited to see what everyone's kind of ability to come back from all of this will be like. Who's going to be amped up, who's going to discover that maybe the new norm is what they love versus what the traditional standing was.
Absolutely. And Shawn, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I know that we, have done what we can at the Arts Center with presenting a show in a live setting. We've pulled back on our audience numbers to make sure that we have adequate areas for people to join us. We, of course, are wearing our masks. We rehearsed on Zoom. On a personal level, I'm curious, what gave you the power to go forward in a live show in this time? Because I know that we share our concerns and we're doing what we can, but at the end of the day, we committed to it. And I'm just curious as to what that took for you as an artist, and what really allowed you to empower yourself to put yourself out there like that.
Well, I think that, and you and I can both attest to this, even 30 seconds before we walked on that stage opening night, we felt the nerves and the pressure of what we were doing, right? Well, are we really going to do this? Are we really about to go stand in front of people and put on a show? Knowing that we took every precaution, followed every standard, wore our masks, social distance, sanitized, got our temperatures taken, checked in with each other, made sure that we were comfortable at home and not doing anything crazy that would, breach that trust, and I think for a starter, you and Bert, who are the ones that approached me about this, I trust both of you wholeheartedly. So I think there, in and of itself, comes the first step. You have to trust the organization. You have to trust the people you're working with. You have to know that you're in it together, and that if you're gonna do it, yes, you're taking risks. You're doing something that maybe even some people will disapprove of, but the steps are in place for you to do it the way that anyone would look at as a standard. And if you follow those rules and if you just use kind of common sense, especially in a small production like this, I think you can get through it and not have to worry about it too much. And I think that helped as well, as far as my ability to jump into it. And frankly, when we first talked about it, nobody could gauge how bad this pandemic would actually get. And I think I just thought in my own mind that it would loosen up, and that I thought that the burden of the number of cases would disappear, but instead it's right as we opened it, it's just exponentially gotten worse, which I think also added to our nerves that first night. Like right before we stepped up there, it's like, wow. It's like when we first decided to do this, we thought the curve would be flattened and we'd have less to worry about and be more comfortable. Instead, it ended up being a little bit more pressure. But I trusted in the process. I trusted in the steps we took, and I trusted everybody that was around me. So that made everything, doable. And I think so long as a company takes care of its own and recognizes that there are first and foremost in that working environment, they have to take care of the people that are present, and then make sure that if they're going to bring anybody else into that environment, they're taking all the other steps to protect them as well. Then I think you should be able to confidently do a show, especially if you're doing something that logistically makes sense to the era. I mean, we don't need to do a show with 30 plus people, singing in each other's faces or anything like that. We do a small controlled show like this where people can stay away from each other and wear their masks and, understand the gravity of the situation. So I don't know, that's just a lot of things, but, I feel like my nerves have, after this first weekend, not completely gone away, but I feel comfortable with how we're going about it.
Good. It's been a privilege to attempt it, and I'll be the first to admit I'm not sure how it will play out. And to me, art's important. I think this particular piece, which I'll ask you about in just a second, is very pertinent, and it was written very long ago. And I hear a lot of things about, people saying, well, we haven't learned about this or we haven't learned about that. It's still out there. It's still happening. And Zeus story is a perfect example of reminding us that times have not changed as effectively as we wish they would. And it's a privilege to tell these stories. And I do think it is what will get us through. And I'm just very grateful that you have the trust in the organization and the people that we're interacting with, and doing all we can to make sure that we can keep art alive as best we can. So I know the houses are small, but that's just what it needs to be right now. And if we can,
we're selling out those small houses. I mean, we've limited the amount of seats, but guess what? I've performed for less. And happily. Yeah.
So, Shawn, do you mind talking a little bit about your thoughts on Zeus story, and without giving too much away from the show, where's the relevance for you in telling this particular story and in sharing it?
Well, I'm a huge L.I.P fan. I directed the Godot who's Sylvia, which you were a part of, and I've done excerpts from the Zeus story before when I was much too young for it. And, I've just loved watching all the productions for Mr. L.I.P on stage throughout the times I've seen them. They've all been good, actually, for the level of what I've seen. The Zeus story is first major success. The first play he would consider his first complete play when he wrote it, even though 50 years later he decided it wasn't complete, and he had a whole first act that he wanted to throw at it, which is exciting in and of itself. And if we had had better time to prep, that might have been something we would have addressed. Just as a kind of side note for everybody that's listening, this was actually intended to be performed at the FIT Festival this summer. And there's a time limitation there, and this is a one-act play, and it fit within that. Normally, a professional theater will have to do both acts of this play because that's the way the L.I.P estate and Mr. Edward L.I.P had wanted it before he passed. And so any professional production now has this full-scale production where Peter is the, through character through both acts, spends the first act with his wife, and then the second act at the park with Mr. Jerry. Both acts, and especially the one that we deal with the inability for people to communicate and to connect. And there's also a class element that goes into it. There's also a kind of rough edges versus fine edges motif to it, and really the communication aspect and how people deal with one another. It's a super absurd play. Most people, a lot of people would listen to Albie's language and how it kind of connects and not think it's absurd. A lot of his plays have that kind of straight feel to it, but no, they're all very absurd in style, a la the school of Samuel Beckett. He's got such a great way with the layering of people talking and overlapping and kind of poking and prodding and needling and finding those angles on one another. And it's really a question of why throughout the plays. Why are these two talking? Why are these two, in that same secluded spot together? Why does one stay? Why doesn't that person just go? What keeps them going through the entire process that they go through? And those kind of questions are universal. You can look at any Facebook fire thread and be like, why are these people doing the things they're doing to each other? That you're two people, and you have your own lives and can relate on many, many levels, but the internet offers that anonymity to kind of go after one another and not feel pressured. But even in person, now we see it out on the streets. People are unwilling to communicate and connect. And Zoo Story, oh wow, just on a really micro level, encapsulates all of that. And I think that's what's fascinating about the show. And I think that when people see it, that's something they take away from it, and they, that familiarity and uncomfortability that comes with the interaction that's on stage in front of them. And it's funny, it's genuinely funny, but not the kind of like guffaw laughter you would get out of a traditional comedy. But people can't help but laugh because it's so true and uncomfortable. And if they don't laugh, what are you going to do? And I think that's what's so brilliant about the play.
Yeah, it is a masterpiece. It really is. And really set the stage for a lot of that character-driven art that started to be produced at that time. So it's a fabulous piece. I'm flattered to have the opportunity to do it with you. So, all right, my friend, how's that lunch coming?
All right, next step, get this machine going. It's really good because I can spend 20 minutes, with two forks shredding a piece of chicken here. This thing takes out all the guesswork, all the effort. She's a beaut. Kick the tires on this thing.
Now that looks pretty new. Have you used that a bunch during the pandemic, or is that a new feature to the kitchen items?
Oh no, we have had this for about 9 years now. It's just beautiful, and it withstands really well. Crystal, my wife, she's the one that utilizes the most. And this is her apron. Her, cake is awesome. So mainly it's used for baking type stuff, making banana pudding, making brownies, cake, whatever, cupcakes. This is what she mainly uses it for. And there's some hefty stuff we do occasionally like this with the shredding of chicken and mixing of big sauces or whatever. I personally haven't used this much ever, or during the pandemic, in fact. But I've done a lot of cooking. I've made several new dishes, discovering what I'm capable of cooking. I've made baked spaghetti, which they love around here. I've made this several times. I've made a lot of Filipino dishes, chicken adobo, pork sinigang. I've fried up some lumpia. I've made steaks. I've made burgers. We've grilled out. Trying to think of some of the other really interesting. She has this chicken cabbage and bacon dish she likes to make. That's like Crystal's primo dish. I love that. It's given us a chance to kind of try out new things, and I guess that's a benefit of the pandemic. We'll be able to come out all, top tier chefs, right?
Yeah, really. Well, I can attest to some of those meals. I've been over there and got to share in one or two of
Oh
them.
yeah.
You
Oh
can,
yeah, the chili. I've made the chili several times too since we've been in here.
yes, absolutely. So, Shawn, we
So
talked a
yeah,
little bit.
there we go,
Oh,
baby.
nice. And you just put the chicken in, right?
Just pop the chicken in and you start mixing it up, nice and slow. Don't get too crazy with it. Give it a lot of love.
Very nice. All right. So we talked a little bit about all of the different ways that the arts are advancing themselves. Do you see that trend continuing even after the pandemic? Do you think that this virtual stuff will become a tool, or do you think it'll drift away once we're able to get back in person with people?
So I think for the theaters with the resources and theaters with the drive, they'll have this as something that's in their back pocket, right? They want to reach a wider audience. Dallas wants to reach out to Idaho, wants to reach out to folks in Alaska. So how do you do that? You do that by making your productions available online, or doing what like the National Theater does, where you sell tickets to a time and place to watch the event as if it's a traditional theatrical production where it's a live production, and you can't really pause or fast forward or rewind it. You have to watch it like it's a real show, right? And that's pretty ingenious, I think, as far as protecting your material and making sure that you can't, once it's out there virtually, people are going to find ways to record it, but you have to be willing to take that sacrifice and risk that, hey, it doesn't matter if it's on YouTube or somebody's kept it for their personal collection. You go out there and you make the art and people will still be interested in it and still want to come see it. It's the same thing that happened with music, when MP3 boom and burning CDs and all that other stuff became such a huge deal. What did the music industry do? They adapted and they went to a streaming service, and it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 CDs of a certain band. It's online and available for everyone that subscribes to it. So why would they want to go out of their way to take any risks like that? It's now too easy to get it at home. You don't want to go onto the dark web or the black market or anything like that. But I respect and understand smaller and certain theaters with certain traditions to go back to the old way of just, hey, we got a 4-week run for you. Come here Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday matinees, and buy a ticket, have a seat, and watch a show. And I can understand longing for that and wanting to get back to that. I think that's far away. And even if we do get back, the norm of people maybe wearing masks or having your seats a little more spaced out, which would be a benefit to the audience, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't go back to the sardine method of seating people. Go ahead and keep that spacing. Maybe not 6 feet apart, maybe a couple feet, but allow people to stretch out a bit. I think that's one thing that needs that'll have to endure, is that kind of spacing, because I think people just kind of be a little fidgety about it, and I think it's respectful too. I think other countries like Japan and Korea have already adopted that mode with their daily life, since they are so much metropolitan and in enclosed spaces together. It's a matter of respect to wear a mask and mind your spacing when you can. And Japan, totally showed us up. They didn't even have to go on lockdown. They all just wore masks, which some places just have to learn the hard way, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We like to learn the hard way.
Yes.
But I think we'll still get through it. It'll be longer than some other places, and I think that in the vie to stay alive, as far as theaters and their economic existence is concerned, I think some of them have pulled the trigger way too soon on their traditional type of performances, and if now paying the physical toll of it, the traditional, hey, everyone, we've got COVID flowing through this cast and crew, but you're going to also have to pay the public toll on that, which is how are you perceived? What's the trust level of going back to that theater? You couldn't take care of the people on stage. What makes me think that you're going to take care of me? You know, that sort of thing. So it's a waiting game. You have to be patient, and if you're not willing to be patient, you have to be innovative. And if you're
Yes.
not willing to be innovative, it might be time for you to move on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So I see you're going through, looks like the final stages there of the mixing. While you're finishing up that mixing, I was curious if you would be kind enough to talk a little bit about what helpful community resources are you or the companies that you're engaged with using personally? And how can the companies that you're working with be assisted or provide assistance to other artists or organizations?
Well, right off the top of my head, it's not something I've taken part in, but I've seen certain people already access it. The Live Theater League is giving off a small grant to the artists in need, independent artists, small theaters. I think it's something like $250, which may not seem like a lot to most folks, but it's a lot to that individual. It's a lot to keeping the lights on. It's a lot to paying the rights for something, you know, if you want to put on a production. Earlier in this pandemic, Bren Rapp, who's a staple within the theater community, mainly as a producer and a kind of a cheerleader for the arts, started a fundraiser for a numerous amount of small theaters and independent theaters, and managed to raise $250 per theater in that group, you know, to do with as they please, you know, to help keep them going, to help know, at least also provide that a feeling that there's people out there looking out for their best interests and wanting them to continue on. And I know that some people have accessed the Arts Online grants that have been happening through the government and through some of the national endowments, and have even gotten paid out on that too, and considerable amounts. I've heard of numbers of, for individuals, upwards of, you know, $1,000, $1,500, you know, to get them through this tough time. Especially if you're like a clown or you know, a busker, or just a, you know, independent performer, a voiceover artist that relies solely on the voiceover field as a contractor. You know, there are places to go. They're not extensive. You know, everyone's still trying to figure things out, but I think that doing that, it gives some people hope. I also know that some artists have gone back into educating themselves, or just gone back into teaching. So there's that time for self-improvement and also to improve others. And I think a lot of our group within the community has gone full force on that, and has decided that that's the best that they can offer, and that's the best they can do for themselves. And those are both viable and will make them more of a resource once this is all said and done, you know.
Yeah.
As the protests are happening and as people are vying for change, I know that part of our responsibility as artists and people in this community, you know, that want to kind of fulfill that change, you know, we have to look to organizations that do bailouts, and look to organizations that are helping lift up communities, NAACP, and all of the national bailout funds, and just the support that can be provided. And I think a lot of the groups that I work with, you know, get into those outreach programs, put themselves on the front line to promote those things, and to you know, be an active change. And that's another thing that artists are doing. They're taking their skills, their voice, and applying it to, you know, current social situations. And I think that's a great use of, you know, their training and their drive and initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that I know a lot of the focus is on monetary resources, funding, grants, things along those lines. And I think it's important to also realize, in terms of resources, the mental health resources as well, suicide prevention, well-being, social services, and all those things are still out there. And I hope that not only artists, but also people in general realize that they can reach out to those as well to help strengthen the family and arts as well, mentally as much as physically, keeping people alive with monetary funding as well. So we need it all for sure. All right, buddy, you're moving on to plating.
So, normally I put that out in the center of the table. Everyone have their own plate. Get yourself a little thingamabob here and load her up. Mine's pretty simple. Just, my leaf is my plate. My hands are my tools. This is a very Filipino sentiment, by the way.
It's looking good, looking good. Looky there. Give me a close-up shot of that.
That's delicious.
Nice. All right. Well, it looks like you're moving ahead of me a little bit with your plating there. So,
well, I'm always a hungry person, so I
know. I'll show you mine here. So I just added a little salt and pepper there, and my secret ingredient was some Tabasco sauce. But there is my little Smokies right there. And I've also got my little toast that will carry me through, and the melted cheese. And as we get ready to dine, Shawn, do me a favor. Tell me a little bit about where can we find Zoo Story? How does it run? And how do we get there if we're comfortable enough to step out and enjoy a live production?
Certainly. The Zoo Story will be running for the next 2 weeks, Fridays and Saturdays, 7:30 p.m. I have live music beforehand. We had a guitarist for our first 2 shows, but I think we might have another guitarist and a flautist, in fact, showing up for the other shows. We have giant blue circles kind of strategically placed throughout the veranda. It is performed outside, and within those circles is where you have your seat with yourself or whatever group you brought with you, and it's spaced away from everybody else. We've limited the number of tickets, so if you want in, please go online and grab a ticket. You're free to bring your own cooler or beverages. We had a family on opening night bring an entire picnic. It was great. They looked like they were enjoying themselves, quite heartily. We as performers are masked for almost the entire duration of the show. There's only limited exposure at any given point, and the audience is always masked. The show is only an hour long, so you're outside covered, not directly in the sun. And we've been fortunate to have a nice little breeze the past couple of shows. It's been very comfortable. And I think that if you want more information, obviously you can go to the Fort Worth Art Center's website, fwcac.com, and you can pull up the current productions and kind of notes on what's happening there. And you can buy your tickets there as well. And you play Jerry and I play Peter. Best of buds. And you should come check out our wacky adventures together within this production. It's been a great experience. The work is really good, and the feedback's just been amazing. Everyone's been so positive about what we've done and the work that's up there, and how comfortable they felt during the entire process. And that's something I like to hang my hat on. I'm very proud of what we did, and it was a challenge and a leap of faith for us, and I'm glad we did it.
I am too. Very well said, my friend. All right, buddy. Well, with that, I'm gonna enjoy my lunch, make another little lettuce wrap there, and ladies and gentlemen, that does it for another episode of Boxed Lunch. We will be back on Friday. Can't wait to see you. Make sure you follow us on Fort Worth Community Arts Center, Facebook and Instagram. Jump over to YouTube. We've got some fabulous content there as well, along with all the other Boxed Lunch episodes. Shawn, my friend, I look forward to seeing you again this weekend. I can't thank you enough for taking this journey with me, and more importantly, joining me for lunch today. So with that,
bon appetit.
Any final thoughts for the audience out there?
Just my love goes out to all of you and all your families, and I know you're going to do what's best for them, and you're going to do what's comfortable, but keep creating, keep making art, keep reaching out the way you need to reach out. And if that means just taking care of yourself, that's part of it too. If you're comfortable, I hope to see you out at the Fort Worth Art Center and watching Jason and myself. But otherwise, man, just stay safe, wear a mask.
Wash your hands.
Yeah,
All right,
wash your hands.
Love you much.
Bye, guys.
Bon appetit, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there. We'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.